Let's start, Mike. I'll just give you sort of, again, restate the premise of what I'm doing. I'm trying to get at, I'm going to call the book The Tune of Business. And what I hear a lot from folks who are trying to justify music education is the whole link between music education and improved scores in math and science. What I find, though, when I talk to people in technical fields, that when you ask them what their success is related to, if they've been, moving up the ranks, they'd probably say 15 to 20% is technical skills and 80% are the other softer skills. So what I'm trying to do is link a correlation between music education, all those other things that determine success, and take a little bit of a different approach.
Okay.
So keep that in mind as we walk through the discussion. Just give me first, Mike, your earliest memories of music, what you remember hearing at a real young age and how it affected you.
Well, I remember hearing music at church. I guess would be the first, the most probably the first memories I have, and and the real effort to make music beautiful, and I guess just the typical sounds of growing up in New Orleans.
Right.
Your music is all around you.
Right.
And I think just being in love with it all my life.
Right. What about any particular genre, song, band, a moment, a concert?
Usually influenced by the Beatles.
Right. Right.
No, I mean I'm of that era where what they did. Was just tremendous. That was the day of the big AM radio where you'd go down to the drugstore and spend 25 cents to get a 45, with the A and the B side. Mm-hmm. And I was right in the middle of all that.
Right.
And so, and still listen to their music and still think they're as powerful an influence on art in general as anything that's happened in the last 50 or 60 years.
What about, Mike, was there a correlation? I know a lot of people who were influenced by the Beatles. It really transcended just music. I mean, it was sort of a movement and a generation. Speak to what that meant to you as well.
Well, absolutely. It was expressing, I guess, an era of real, art reflects life. I guess it would be that era of heightened change, of personal discontent, of grappling with core issues, of looking around you and not making a connect between what you saw and what you felt.
Right, right.
Again, some of that had to do with justice issues of race, of some of it just had to do with equity issues of how come so-and-so's got this and other people don't.
Right.
We claim to be the land of opportunity. Part of what I think we were striving for to identify in those days was how equitable was that opportunity? Does everybody have the same opportunity?
Right. And
then, of course, we were pressed on by a war. And so that war for me, and for like many other Americans, was not just an abstract exercise.
Right.
We also, knew people who had lost their lives in that war, knew families who had been affected. And of course, I was at the age where I was subject to the drafts.
Right.
So it was not an academic exercise.
Right.
And so to find any art form, but particularly one as accessible and as present as popular music, to begin to tussle with that. So, the same time you have the Beatles, you have Bob Dylan, you have Peter, Paul, and Mary, you have Pete Seeger, you have the emergence of the folk music becoming protest music, and popular music sort of echoing those themes.
Right.
So rock and roll goes from just a mere expression of youthfulness into an expression of some serious political and sociological issues. It was a profound time, and it is an unusual time. Many researchers call these periods golden periods where a convergence of things happens. If you look at Athens, you look at Rome, you look at the Renaissance, you look at periods where art and civic and commerce and all these things come together. And I think the 60s and all that meant represented that time in the world. It was a time, most probably, the first time the world had to stop and look at itself since World War II.
Right.
And sort of take a hard look, and not necessarily liking what it found.
Right.
So you hear a lot of art trying to tussle with that.
Right. And the Beatles, I guess, they sort of transformed themselves at like the generation, I guess, where they
absolutely
they started sort of as a pop phenomenon and really changed their message, I guess, in the way
they. And I think that's a real accurate description of their from the Love Me Do era all the way up, and then to the to the Sgt. Pepper's, and then to beyond. You're looking at a reflection of what was going on in many young people's minds that were growing up with them.
Right, right. And what about, Mike, you play guitar, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when was a guitar introduced to you?
A friend of my father's came home from a long, extensive work trip in Alaska, and he brought back a guitar. And he gave it to me and said, I'm going to come back in 6 weeks, and if you can learn how to play the song on this guitar in that 6 weeks, I'll let you keep it.
Wow.
And I did.
How old were you?
12.
Okay.
So I taught myself the guitar and played it, still do.
What was the song?
Love it. And then, so vocal music and guitar, and that was just, and so that period of time was when I began. So I would sit in front of the stereo listening to Beatles songs and trying to figure out what they were playing.
Okay, what was the song he asked you to learn?
Oh, God, what was it? Oh, that's a great question. Well, it wasn't very complicated, I can assure you. It was a C, an F, and a G7.
Okay. Well, that's all you need in rock and roll, man.
That was basically the whole thing. I don't recall. That's a good, I'll have to dig. Maybe my mom will tell me. I'll have to ask her. I don't recall. Let me make something up for the book, though. That was
Okay, that'll work.
Let's just say Home on the Ring. Okay.
Works for me. If two people repeat it, it becomes truth, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Okay. And so that was, you started listening to, obviously, the Beatles. Your sort of.
Oh yeah, and I did what every other kid did. We formed a rock band in our neighborhood. We played at a local gym for a battle of the bands.
Right.
We did all that stuff, and then in high school I got involved in a superior vocal ensemble. A glee club at the school. That was just we had a wonderful director who taught me how to read music.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about, what is his name?
His name is Malcolm Breda, and he may be retired now, but he was the chair of the music department at Xavier.
Okay, what's the spell of last name?
Breda.
Okay. And tell me a little bit more about just working with him and how we...
Well, he was just, he saw what we were doing, even though we were a small high school, as being at the highest level, and he wanted us to see this as a pursuit of excellence.
Right.
And so, we rehearsed all day long. It became a really important organization in my small school, and but he also taught us how to read music, how to sight read, how to understand what the intent of the composer was, and introduced us to not only just the fun music to sing, but also some challenging pieces.
Right.
And so the 4 years I spent there was just really just enjoyed the hell out of it.
Okay, and tell me a little bit more, because everybody in music has some kind of a mentor that was just special to them, and really had certain characteristics. Tell me about what it was about him that really made him a great teacher.
He saw that excellence and joy could be part of the same pursuit.
Right.
That you could work hard, demand the best of yourself and the others you were with, but and that did not diminish, it only enhanced your joy.
Right. Okay, good.
So that was an important lesson for me to learn. And I think it is for young people, where they tend to associate hard work with pain.
Right.
And I was taught that hard work meant that you could then stand in front of a group of people and perform, and they would love you.
Wow, good stuff. What about, so Mike, it was a vocal group, was there any guitar there or just vocal?
No, that was a glee club. That was a 70 voice choir, right?
Okay. And did the guitar ever come back in terms of you said you played in a band, sort of a garage band in the neighborhood?
That was it, no.
Okay, got it.
No, it doesn't become anything more than a real personal pleasure.
Right. Okay, and you continue to play today?
Mm-hmm, sure do.
What kind of guitars have you had through the years?
Bad ones, cheap ones. The guitar I currently play, my children gave me for Father's Day one year.
Oh, good deal.
So it's a really special guitar.
Okay, and looking back, Mike, on sort of, coming full circle to where you are now, I guess and you tell me different, but I guess there are two things that you have to look at perspective-wise. Is one, making sure that kids appreciate all music from where you're sitting, and number two, I guess, making your corporate sponsors and donors to, understand the importance of funding of something like the symphony. So tell me how you guys approach those things and what else to...
Well, two things. First of all, I think that the uniqueness of this particular orchestra was it was actually founded for the purpose of education.
Okay.
So in its 76-year history, this orchestra has inherent in its mission the idea that we serve the citizens of this state by educating them. So it has been playing concerts for fourth graders forever, since the Great Depression.
Wow.
And it still does today.
Right.
And so that is part and parcel of this. That's not a case to be made. People in this community, in this state, get that. They
Right.
want that.
Right.
And I think the argument we make is twofold. One is certainly we help people understand that in education there is a connection between all the pieces. So if, language, music, mathematics, science, all of those things in many ways are connected to our cognitive functioning. So if at any time I improve cognitive functioning in one place, the odds are I'm going to get it in other places as well.
Right, right.
So I think that, as an educator, and as certainly as now someone generating resources for educational initiatives, that's the case. But I got to tell you, the other case we make is, in and of itself, art is worthy.
Right, right.
If it had no effect on those others, it really wouldn't matter. It is a pursuit of quality of life, of personal joy, of meaning, and I don't want to get away from that. I don't think we need to subjugate that pursuit in and of itself absent the other one. I mean, yeah, it helps you be a better engineer. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't.
Right.
At one point, who cares?
Yeah.
It helps you be a better person.
Right.
And so if I can go see a painting or listen to a piece of music or understand that the connections between a Bach and a Mozart and a Stravinsky and a Paul McCartney are timeless,
Right.
Then to some extent I think that's a powerful connection to be made. So I think we try to argue it both ways.
Right. Okay, good. What about in terms of funding at the the ground level, Mike? Elementary and high school level. I mean, you see that battle being fought all the time. And what is the, how do you make that argument to somebody grappling with all those issues who are trying to battle?
Well, I think that as a former principal, I would say that the right of the community to know whether schools are working or not is a fair expectation.
Right.
I think it's fair whether you're a tuition-paying parent or just a tax-paying citizen. That's a legitimate. Unfortunately, the current trend has been to emphasize standardized testing as a way to know that.
Right.
I think that is a piece of the puzzle, but I don't think it's the whole puzzle, and I certainly don't think it's a big piece.
Yeah.
So I think we have then sacrificed some things. I would tell you that I think that recess time is as important as other things for a child's development.
Right, social skills.
The fact that we've taken those away because we don't have time for it anymore is really disturbing. I think physical, artistic development is imperative. I think you see in better school systems that they still find a way to do that despite the pressure on testing.
Yeah.
And I would hope that will continue, because I think absent that, I think we're going to grow an adult citizenry absent some of the things that make life worth living.
Right, right.
And so I would regret if we lost that as a nation,
right,
and didn't see that. So I'm hopeful with some of the changes perhaps forthcoming in an election where we perhaps can recast this conversation about education. I'm hopeful that perhaps will emerge a more holistic picture that I think most parents would embrace, and realize that the school can do so much, we have to do the rest. And somewhere in the middle of all that, there's an opportunity for balance.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you say, though, the election. It seems like it's been sort of a topic that's been absent from the conversation, though, as far as I'm trying to...
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's unfortunate, because I think that certainly, and perhaps in the general election, it will resurface as, one candidate has to declare whether the sustaining of No Child Left Behind will be, part of that or not.
Right.
And, it'll be interesting to see. Certainly, having been on the front lines of that and knowing that well, I would certainly be an advocate for abolishing the idea that testing can play such a prominent role in evaluating young people.
Yeah, it's
really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know that, and again, some of the research I've been doing, I read a book called How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, sure.
And,
the book.
There's a lot of talk about that, about, just the absence of creative thought. My son came home with a project last week to make up an animal that doesn't exist. And I said, this is one of the things that you rarely see that's really a good exercise. It was a combination of a squirrel and a tiger and 7 different animals. And I said, this is a great...
Absolutely.
This is stuff you don't see enough of,
But that's not on a test.
Right, right.
And when the pressure is on educators to do that, then they're going to look at a teacher and go, we don't have time to do that. Get back to those drills.
Yeah.
And that's a way to beat intelligence out of a kid.
Right. What about, Mike, and this is sort of the million-dollar question here, and you touched on one aspect of this earlier, but if I'm looking to take lessons from a business perspective, things that kids or adolescents develop from music education, either attributes, skills,
Sure.
that they can take that really set them up for success in any kind of business endeavor. And one you mentioned was that the pursuit of excellence can be a great joy and not just a source of pain.
Absolutely.
That's a great one.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at professional musicians or artists at any level, what you rarely see is the amount of time and energy it takes to get to that level of virtuosity.
Sure.
And I think that as a business person, as you begin to appreciate that, how many scales does Leo Kottke have to perfect to get to the level of excellence he is on a guitar?
Yeah.
I mean, my God. I mean, it's unthinkable. And yet that's indeed the journey in front of you, is that every day you have to be willing to do most probably a whole compendium of little things that all add up to greatness. And I think that in business, when we look at the management of people and the relationships, I think that what music does is, particularly music, is the joy, to me, the power of music is it transcends language. It is able to reach people without the necessity of language.
Right.
There are, and classical music certainly represents one genre of music, jazz perhaps another, where the whole idea of words isn't even important. The idea that the sound produced and the emotions generated by those sounds are shared.
Right.
They're human. They're not bound by nations or political concerns. There's a film out, in fact, it's I can find its name for you, that it may be of interest to you, of an orchestra that was formed. I don't know if you heard about this. It was an orchestra of young people formed in the Middle East of Israeli children and Pakistani children, I mean not Pakistani, and Palestinian children and others, as a way of forming peace. And music was their bond.
Holy cow.
And it's a documentary film. In fact, there's a Jewish film league that, here we go. It's called Knowledge is the Beginning.
Cool.
And it's, let me see, because there's a Triangle Jewish Film Festival, and this is, I'll email you the description.
That'd be great.
And I think you might find it's called Knowledge is the Beginning, and it's all about this orchestra that was formed of musicians aged 14 to 25.
Oh, very nice.
And anyway, I mean, I think that's the power, that it brings people together in a way that if I have to use words, I lose the ability to do that. So,
Right.
So the timelessness of that is really important.
Right. Cool.
And I think so in business, I think that it's the same thing. I think that in business often we don't know how to celebrate. We don't know how to bring joy into our work. We tend to keep nose to the grindstone, keep the flywheel spinning, all that other stuff.
Right.
Where I think that we forget the humanity of this. We forget that, probably the workforce of the future is going to be driven not by technology, but by people.
Yeah.
And so I think bringing values and meaning to the workplace is the height of learning.
Right.
And so if music can be a path to that, then so be it. I mean, Progress Energy, the large utility firm, is one of our larger sponsors, and we give them a concert every year. Not every year, we give them a concert occasionally for their employees. And I was talking to their director of corporate giving, and she said that 2 years ago, employees and their families could come to a concert, and they still talk to it today. And they talk about the bonds that formed among their workforce when they went to hear a concert together.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of experience, that the power of music. Some of our colleagues at the North Carolina Center for Performing Arts were scheduled to perform the night that they heard of that young woman's murder, their student body president.
Oh, yeah.
They chose to go ahead with the concert because they recognized the healing power of music.
Right.
And there's this incredible story we heard from the president of that organization of what was happening in that hall as 1,400 people in an orchestra shared this incredible music around this incredible experience.
Holy cow.
Those are, you can't do that in any other way.
Yeah.
That's the power of this art form.
It's hard to imagine that in any other.
No, it just can't be done. I can't paint a painting that's going to do that.
Right.
So I think that power is there. And so I think when when business people want to bring that kind of emotional bonding, and I think music can be a source of that.
Yeah, it's amazing more companies don't use that in more profound ways, I guess. I mean, you look at how pervasive music is in everybody's lives. It just seems like a natural step to take that and use.
Well, you want to talk. I mean, like, I'm at a. I want to create inside my workforce a sense of triumph over adversity.
Right.
Well, I mean, how many symphonic pieces have these stirring, rousing pieces of just that theme embedded in them?
Right.
So I bring my people to a concert hall to hear, this incredible orchestra play this incredible piece of music that's all about overcoming adversity.
Right.
And then here we go. So, I mean, those are some magical things.
Yeah, great. What about, Mike, what are you seeing and hearing out there in terms of just innovative ways to use music? And you mentioned a few again, but innovative ways to get funding, innovative ways to use music in educational settings, therapeutic use.
A couple of things. Having artists, musician in residence programs.
Okay.
Expanding those. That's an idea whose time comes and goes. I think it's come back again.
Right.
So bringing music with professional musicians into the classrooms through either personal or ensemble work.
Right.
I also think master classes for aspiring young professional musicians who are, at the cusp of their career, who with a little guidance might decide a career in music has some value for them.
Right.
So I think that's another touch point that I'm seeing. Using music as a way of reaching into underserved populations and communities.
Right, right.
So that bonds are formed and access is granted in a way that, we played before most probably 90,000 kids across the state of North Carolina.
Right.
Most of whom will never, ever get to hear a symphony orchestra outside that one.
Right, right.
So we're looking for ways of repeating that. I mean, obviously the Internet, using interactive tools so that a kid can conduct an orchestra.
Wow.
I think you look at the popular culture now with the little Einsteins and others is now beginning to mirror some of the way of blending classical music and even popular music into kids' learning. So, I mean, my 3-year-old watches, little Einsteins, and it's built around a theme from classical music. So he's learning about the name and he's hearing the music that perhaps later in life, when he hears it again, he'll remember, oh yeah, that's good stuff.
Right, right, good. What about, Mike, if you run into some people that, any particular stories about people who were, like yourself, touched by music in a special way, it just had a profound impact? Any other stories you want to share with me, people that you run into?
Gosh, a lot of folks, one of the questions I always ask in this business is, when I'm meeting people, is how did you come to this music? Why are you a regular goer to symphony music?
Mm-hmm.
And the number one predictor that I'm hearing, and it's based in some research by the Knight Foundation, is that playing a musical instrument when they're a child is the number one reason why they continue to stay with music. So that's the shame of what we're doing here, right? Because by eliminating such programs in schools, we're dooming another generation of never coming to this music.
Right, right. What about, Mike, you touched on some research. What are the, again, considering what I'm trying to do, and where would you point me toward the research that you've been...
The Knight Foundation funded an extensive research project on classical orchestras, classical music in America.
Okay.
So I would go to their website. We downloaded that report. So you should be able to do that yourself. It's a PDF, and it's a fairly extensive research report on what they've done.
Okay.
And let me look through my files. I've got a bunch of stuff here and there that I subscribe to that I will forward to you.
Okay.
That might be, there's an Arts Journal of America that does a lot of this tracking.
Okay.
New York Times has some excellent articles. There's one about 8 months ago called Why Classical Music Matters.
Right.
So you might be able to get that out of their archives. Again, I'm tracking classical music, but
right.
A lot of that is bleed over.
Mm-hmm.
Or as our general manager says, great music is great music.
Right. Cool.
I think your research needs you to come to North Carolina so we can treat you to a concert or two,
There you go.
I think that's obviously the next step in your research process.
Works for me. Mike, what about, I guess question I want to close with, if you can't think of anybody off the top of your head, but just keep in mind as you travel, if you run across people who would be a good source of, information from our book, again, somebody you run into in a corporate setting that says, I was exposed to music education, played an instrument, and that's why I'm here supporting this. I'd really love to, that's the journey I'm on right now, so.
Well, no, and I'll be happy to forward their name and number and get their permission in advance to talk to you.
That'd be great.
It'd be delightful. Yeah. Good enough.
All right,
this
sir.
Sounds exciting. Good.
Yeah, this is the one thing, again, Mike, when you talk to people in the speaking business, they keep saying, you've got to focus and you've got to find that one thing that, is your passion you wake up in the morning talking about, and this would be the one thing that I couldn't agree with you more. This has been on your mind every time we talk, so. Yeah, right. Great.
Good for you. I will email you that reference to that film because I think that's going to be a powerful, perhaps a powerful image for you to start looking at. And I haven't seen the film,
right?
But it might be something worth trying to find a way to get to view.
That'd be great.
Because it sounds like. The other thing is, and I'll send you more information on this. Yo-Yo Ma is coming to perform with us in September.
Okay.
And he has a project. You might want to look this up on the internet called the Silk Road Project.
Okay.
Where he has developed the Italy to China, the old trade routes of the Marco Polo era. So that might be another just avenue where he's really looked at music in a much broader scape than just, the sitting down and hearing a concert.
Great. All right, so I always appreciate your time. Enjoy talking to you.
As always, and we'll talk as the brackets unfold.
Yes, we will. And if I have any follow-ups, I'll just shoot you an email or give you a call.
You got it. Take care.
All right, Mike.
All righty. Bye-bye.